Good morning, everyone. Morning, Karen. Thanks for joining this morning. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. So today we are going to be covering landlord expenses. So a lot of good topics today, Karen, that we're going to cover. Remember, everybody, if you want to obviously ask questions and things, please drop them in the comments, and we will come to them at the end when we've finished going through all the topics that we are covering today. So landlord expenses, an expert guide to claim back everything you're entitled to. So yeah, how many tax allowances do you think you could claim from owning a rental property? Well, the truth is, you might be pleasantly surprised, and that's what we're going to cover today. Um, Being a landlord is, of course, a business. We always say when we're having discussions that it is in essence your own business. So you should run it like that. But from our experience, not every landlord knows what they're entitled to. As well as the obvious costs like obviously mortgages and maintenance, there are many smaller expenses that can soon add up and make a real difference to the bottom line of your buy-to-let business. Um, Believe it or not, HMRC wants you to claim and even accept digital copies of things like receipts to make it easier. You could simply take photos of your paper receipts and put them in a folder on your phone, and then keep any digital receipts in an email or on your desktop. And this really streamlines the jobs of retrieving them later on. We all know, obviously, at the start of the year, everybody tends to rush to the 31st, obviously, to get their tax returns and that at the last minute. So to do it as you go and keep everything digital and all in one place really does simplify it. So yeah,
It's all those small little things that you can do that at the end of it will make it so much easier for yourself. And I mean, ultimately, this is money in your pocket that you're trying to save here. So I think it'll be a really good show for obviously a bit more insight into that and how you can go about obviously doing your tax returns, making it more efficient, and keeping as much money in your bank as you can. Because, like you say, Richard, this is your business that you're effectively working. So being smart about it and money savvy is going to be one of the keys, I think, for this show.
yeah, I think that it's like anything, do it as you go. Um, Everybody's guilty of leaving things to the last minute at some point in time with something. So no means is tax returns different. So yeah, be aware of what you're obviously be aware of what you're actually entitled to, and record everything as you go. Is a really good way of doing it. So just what can you claim? I think is what everybody wants to know. I think, like I said, there's a lot of landlords who are unsure. There are five main areas of allowanceable expenses, and we're going to cover them all today. We'll guide you through everything that you could claim back, so that instead of leaving wasted money on the table, you can keep it in your pocket where it should be. So yeah, so we're going to go through these five main topics this morning. Just before we move on, I was just going to say, obviously Jim's not with us this morning. Jim is obviously off climbing. I didn't know if he was going to try, and you know what it's like to try and join in the call, but I don't think he's able to. But he's doing really well. Jim's obviously doing his charity climb up Tubcal. He's doing it in for the Crow's Nest Trust, which is for mobility scooters and electric and manual. And they've been running for a lot of years, and they do a lot of good work. So you'll see the link for that on our pages if you want to go and sponsor Jim. And I think he's doing the summit today, which will be, I think he's finding it a challenge, but obviously expected that. Looking at the video was him rather than me. But well done to Jim, and wish him all the best for the day for getting to the top. General maintenance and repairs and things. That's the main thing I think that everybody knows that they can claim on as taxable allowances. So tax deductible allowances. So yeah, you want to cover that with us?
General maintenance and repairs, obviously keeping your property up to date and in good condition is obviously how to attract and retain a good tenant. But more than that, looking after your investment is highly tax efficient with plenty of expenses that you can claim back. So we've got a few different topics in which obviously these are areas that you can claim back. So the first one is repairs and replacements to the property structure and exterior. So this includes things such as the roof, windows, walls, together with permanent interior fixtures such as sinks, toilets and radiators.
Yeah, I think that if you're doing replacements of things like you say the fixtures and fittings, like if it's sinks and toilets and things, and they are of a certain age and need replaced, Similarly like for like, then these are all tax deductible expenses.
Yeah, so obviously there's some more kind of ins and outs of obviously this, but we'll touch on that just towards the end of obviously what can be and what your circumstances are around claiming things such as like toilets and sinks and this kind of thing. So yeah, but one of the other things you could do is decorating costs. So this includes paint, wallpaper, flooring, and contractors to do the work. Also buying and replacing furniture such as curtains and blinds. General upkeep and maintenance, such as gardeners and cleaners. So that one might surprise you, but it is one of the things that is tax deductible. And safety checks. So obviously something that you should be doing on an up-to-date basis, such as gas safety certificate, which is obviously annually, your electric and your smoke alarm. So obviously EICRs are every 5 years.
That's a really good one as well, because obviously we all know any obviously landlords and investors at the moment will be aware of the ever-changing, obviously, legislation and compliance and safety measures that we need to follow. We've gone through a lot of renewals now for the electrical safeties and things, and they can be costly and they're a big outlay, but it's something that you have to do. So to be able to obviously to have them obviously as allowances, then that would be great.
Yeah, especially for the electrical side. Obviously, if it's perhaps the first time you're coming around to doing an EICR, you could be looking at a bit of a higher bill anyway, whether if you need new smoke alarms or a new RCD board. Obviously, these are something that can obviously amount up and to be taken into consideration when you are doing your budget for the year. But obviously, so it's quite a good thing that they can be tax deductible.
Yeah.
So obviously,
you were going to cover about whether it's actually updating or
yeah. So any expenses you can claim back must be for maintaining and repairing your property rather than updating it. So obviously that takes us back to obviously the fixtures and fittings. So improvements are only tax deductible when they are incidental to repair, like swapping a broken single glazed window for a double glazed unit or replacing old worn out fashioned appliances.
Yeah, the double glazing thing's the good example of that, where it's people used to be a bit confused because, well, if you're changing a single glaze to a double glaze, then it's obviously not like for like, and you're enhancing the property. But double glazed is classed as the standard, basically, that it should be. And so a single glazing is obviously passed now. So if there is a single glazing in the property for whatever reason, or if you've only got certain windows and you're upgrading them to double glazed, then that is seen as a tax deductible allowance for that repair, because it's not classed as enhancement. It is obviously repairing to the standard that it really should be in this day and age. So yeah, that's good. A few things in there, Karen, that some people might not be aware of. So that was good, obviously, with regards to, although everybody knows repairs and maintenance are included, maybe just the finer details to clarify there is good. Another thing is landlord's insurance. Now, adequate insurance cover is essential to protect your investment property, whether it's against unexpected damage or loss. Every landlord should have the following 5 types of cover so that they can include in their policies, and they are allowable expenses as well. So first off is obviously buildings insurance, and now that protects your property against damage from things like fire and storm and floods, leaks, and this will cover the structure and exterior as well as the perimeter interior fixtures such as maybe bathroom fittings, kitchen units and wall tiles and things. That is what your buildings insurance will cover, and it's really important. Karen, you'll know just as much as I will how much leaks, and when it's really bad weather, how detrimental it can be to a property, whether it's the roof or whether it's internal. And insurance is a really important thing to have in place for that fact.
Yeah.
I think there was one recent, obviously, at least just before the end of last year, we had all the wind and the rain, and we've seen a lot of roof repairs and internal damage to some properties.
Yeah, I think I think February might be like the peak season for landlords putting in claims for, obviously we get quite a lot of storm damage coming around in February, so they've been reported that February is the worst month for it. So even taking like the necessary steps that you can to make sure that your property is checked over to try and prevent having to go through your landlord's insurance, which by just doing some simple repairs. But obviously I think the key is to have it in place so if it does come to the worst case scenario, you are protected.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we obviously advise at the point of the beginning for any landlord, investor or anything, it's like your landlord's insurance is in place and you've got that, and the importance of that cover. But there will be people out there that maybe don't have it or don't think it's important. I would say that it definitely is. I mean, some people maybe think whether they've got money in the bank, or I don't know what the reasons for them not having insurance, or think that it's not relevant to them. But 100% it's necessary. So yeah, buildings insurance, and then you've also got your contents insurance as well. And that's another essential part, even for unfurnished properties, which is quite a common misconception. It covers appliances, but also covers floor coverings. It covers if you've got curtains, if you've got blinds, any other fixtures and fittings, and furnishings in case of damage and loss caused by maybe a tenant, or maybe even intruders and things if there's a break-in and they cause damages to the internal fixtures, fittings, or any furnishings and appliances. Then it's really important to have the contents insurance cover as well. I've actually got one at the moment where there was a break-in and there was stuff damaged quite extensively in parts, and we are going through an insurance claim for that. Luckily, it's a really good insurance company. No qualms about it. They've been out, the loss adjusters assessed it, and just putting in quotes and things for that to be put through. And they're a really good insurance company. If you're a landlord or investor and need obviously a referral to a good insurance company, then by all means message me direct. You've got my email in the blog attached to the post today, richard.cook@fifeproperties.co.uk. But yeah, it's definitely worth its weight in gold to have a good insurance company that will actually pay out. I mean, I know there's a lot of the big players, Direct Line and Swinton and things, and they'll all do their own versions of landlord's insurance. But I think that if you read the small print, sometimes you're not covered for what you expect you will be, and always so in certain circumstances as well. There's a lot of loopholes in terms of your tenants' circumstances, where their income comes from, whether they're on benefits, whether that'll allow you to be covered to a certain extent. So always check that and make sure.
That's something that I would talk to a landlord. But one of the first things that I cover when I meet a new landlord is to set up landlord insurance and set up your landlord's insurance and register as a landlord with Fife Council. Yep. But one of the things I always say to them is check the details of your policy, because there'll be some things you might be included for, or like you say, depending on the circumstances, it might not work out for you. So definitely read the finer print when it comes to your landlord's insurance.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, buildings, contents, and also liability insurance protects you if a tenant takes maybe legal action against you for whatever reason, for injuries and damages caused by your property. But if the tenant injures herself in the property or something happens, then your liability insurance covers that. The cost of it is usually just a few pounds per month, to be fair. But check your landlord's contents policy to see if you're already covered. Do you know what I mean? So they'll do landlord's insurance, and your buildings and contents and liability will all be in there. But more than likely, but always check that it does cover you for all these aspects. They might only do contents and buildings. They might not do liability for whatever reason. So again, it's important to read the small print. Also, with insurance, you can have a rent protection guarantee insurance, and this covers you if tenants maybe stop paying their rent for whatever reason, and the insurance company will then help regain possession of the property as well, and the costs involved in that. So that's a good thing to have in your insurance. Insurance might feel unnecessary, but it provides peace of mind, and it covers you for when the unexpected hits. So at some point it may happen. Unfortunately, if you're running a business which is buy to let a portfolio, then it might happen at some point. More than likely, if you are going to be a seasoned landlord or investor and plan to do this for a considerable amount of time, it will come around, and to be covered by a good insurance policy is good. Ask an independent insurance broker maybe to source you market deals that wouldn't be obviously out there to the public. And remember to claim back all your costs on your tax return as well. Like I said, if you want to speak to me about referring to quite a good insurance company, then I could do that no problem as a referral through to them direct. So insurance, and then I think obviously think about your bills and admin and your paperwork side of things as well. I was saying that obviously always make sure that you claim back your costs in your tax return. And it's surprising the amount of allowable expenses for general running of your rental property and things that you can actually claim back. These costs could really add up over time, and you are entitled to claim back quite a lot. I'll run through a couple of these just with you just now. So direct costs like advertising for a new tenant. Now people don't understand or realise that using an agent and things can be it is a tax deductible expense. So advertising costs for the new tenant, your phone calls, even your stationery and things that you use for running your rental property are all tax deductible. Water rates, council tax, gas and electricity is an important one just now. For these void periods in between when you're obviously paying for these utility bills and possibly the council tax if you're out with your exemption period, or if you include them in your rent, which we don't usually do, but if that is the case, then these are also expenses as well. Travel expenses, so even like your petrol, or if you're a self-managed landlord and you do a lot of driving between your properties and things, maybe you're doing your own inspections and things. Transport costs, if you do use public transport and things as well for visiting your properties, then that's something as well. And buying goods and managing the contractors and things as well. HMO license fee for houses of multiple occupancy, that's another thing. We don't do HMOs, but there is obviously a lot of people that do. There's a lot involved in HMOs, so to know that obviously the licensing scheme and things is one of those expenses is a good thing to know. Ground rents, service charges, and any residential association or management fees. So if you're in a building block and you've got back-in fees and things, these are included as well. Now, these expenses must be wholly and exclusively related to your rental property. You need to be clear on that, or they will obviously question it. If part of the expense is for something else, you might need to do like an appropriate. You might need to appropriate the costs, so like divide it up basically. As an example, if you say you drove to IKEA and you bought maybe a light fitting for your rental property and another for your own home, you could only claim back 50% of what you spent on the petrol. So you drove there to buy something for yourself and for your rental property. It wasn't solely for the rental property, so you couldn't claim back all the petrol expense for that travel because you were buying stuff for your personal use as well. So you'd have to divide that up. So that's the way to think about it when you're claiming back expenses like that. But it's good to be able to claim back expenses, especially when it comes down to things like repairs and maintenance, and even down to your own time and what you spend doing to get these things for your rental property. Of course, you won't be doing all that running about if you have an agent and a managing agent doing that for you. They will do all that legwork, or their contractors will, and then obviously you could offset the cost of using them again as a tax deductible expense, management fees and things as well. What about landlord services, Karen? I mean, obviously you've done a lot of the property management for 4 years.
Yep, and I've obviously do the rental side of it, so I've got quite a broad span of it. But obviously there's a lot that goes into it, and I think the further we go through this, the more surprised that people can be as the amount of things that are tax deductible. So obviously professional landlord services, there's a number of things that come under here that are obviously tax deductible when you're going through that. So there's various services to make it simpler, easier, and less time consuming to get the most out of your rental property. The good news is that all of the costs that follow for industry professionals are tax deductible. So inventory clerks create a comprehensive list of all the items in your rental property and prove its condition at the start of the tenancy in case it comes to a dispute. So I think this is one of the best ones to have, because a lot of landlords think with their property being unfurnished, they don't need an inventory.
Yeah.
But we are now at the point where basically if you don't have an inventory, you cannot claim against damages. A landlord has to prove what the property was like at the start of the tenancy, and without a comprehensive inventory, you're on a hiding to nothing, unfortunately. So this is something that obviously can be a very comprehensive report. I was speaking with one of our landlords just this week, and she had said they were obviously just up doing some final little bits and pieces, making sure the property was all checked over for their tenant moving in. And the inventory clerk was there at the same time with them, and said he was there for 4 hours. He's like, I thought he was moving in. Well, it's like they're just that comprehensive with it, because obviously this is your property, your investment, that they are having to do this report on. So obviously it takes into account things like the cleanliness, your carpets, your walls, right down to like light switches, plug sockets. So even if you don't have a furnished property, these are still such an essential thing. They are not a requirement, but they are something we would highly advise having done. And silver lining, it's tax deductible as well.
Yeah, the thing with inventories, it's just, again, it's this common misconception that, oh, I don't need one, the property is unfurnished, but they don't maybe realise that it covers all your internal fixtures, your fittings, right down to the light switches, the skirting boards, your floor coverings. And they are very detailed and a really comprehensive report, which, like you say, it's not mandatory. You don't have to have one. It's not a legal requirement, but it's in your best interest to safeguard your investment ultimately. You don't know what could happen out with general wear and tear during a tenancy, and you don't want to be left without being able to claim to rectify these things at the end. Also, it's important, I think, you can do your own inventories, but there's a lot of, I mean, Karen, we done the training course with Safe Deposit Scotland, which is the deposit scheme that we use. And we were even surprised. I mean, it was a good few years ago now, but we got them in just to clarify, like, what is the correct process? What's the best way to do this to make sure it's done properly? And they even pointed out to us, even down to the terminology of how you describe something. Is it professionally cleaned? Is it domestically cleaned? Do you know, just things like that, then that all needs to be right. So we do use an independent third-party inventory clerk, and that's always good as well, because they're coming into a property that we're already familiar with, and the landlord's already familiar with, as with a complete fresh set of eyes, and they see what they record what they see. Whereas an agent and a landlord who are familiar with the property might overlook certain things like that. And it's the finer detail that really is the important part. And you'll know that yourself, obviously, doing deposit claims and everything for many years.
Yeah, so obviously, like right back to the terminology, even the time in which it's done, we used to, obviously, when I started, you used to be able to reuse an inventory if the property was still in pretty much the same condition, but you can't do that anymore. You need one for the start of each new tenancy. That has to be date stamped, time stamped, like everything that goes into it. I've had landlords that have sent me over like a list of what's in the property, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but that won't work. They won't have a leg to stand on with that. So I usually send them over, obviously, a sample of what our inventory clerk carries out, and when they see it, they're like, right, okay, just I'm happy to pay for that to be done, because the length of time it would take them to do something like that, it's weighing up whether what your time is worth as well. Like, are you willing to sit and do that, go through all the pictures, put your descriptions next to them all, type up this report, or would you rather just pay that fee to have somebody else do all that hassle for you?
It's interesting you touched on the time, then obviously because it's time stamped and things, and more than likely we either have it either the day or two prior, or even sometimes on the day, if it's not till later on in the day, that the inventory clerk will do it in the morning. I remember when this first come about with the safe deposit scheme and things and inventories, and we made a claim once using the listing pictures, and it actually went through. You can't do that now. I remember back at the beginning we were able to do that.
There's another thing that shows obviously how things have changed over time, and if you're not keeping up to date with the requirements and the legislation, then you're on a river without a paddle, basically. So
yeah.
it's
very, I mean, I wouldn't even say it's very difficult. You can't do it.
Yeah.
You just completely dismiss it because
unless you're going to invest your time into this, which, as we know, can be a full-time job. It's easier just to pay that percentage to have a letting agent deal with it, because it's peace of mind for yourself. We are literally, it's our job to keep up to date with this and make sure we know what we're doing, and we have a whole team that's doing that, as opposed to one landlord trying to keep themselves up to date with legislation and requirements and everything else that's involved in just the day-to-day running of a rental property.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, there was a time when I would usually advise, if you're going to have a bigger portfolio or intend to build it, definitely have an agent. But if you've only got one or two, you could probably do it on your own. But with the amount of legislation and things just now, and red tape really around how you do things, it's better to have a professional who do it day in, day out. It is really important. So what else, Karen, on the
Yeah.
landlord
As a
services?
digress, so obviously there's
Yeah,
probably
I know.
in
Go
here.
off on a tangent,
We
but
do a whole show
in
probably
truth,
on inventories. So
we
if
could.
you'd like any more information on what's required for them, just message us direct. We clearly know, so we'll be happy to help.
Yeah, I'm interested.
But anyway, coming back to obviously the professional landlord services that are tax deductible. Accountants will help you track your rental income and expenses, handle your tax returns, and stay on top of changes to allowances to ensure your claim back what's yours. So obviously your accountant is something that is tax deductible. Managing agents oversee the day-to-day running of your rental property, and we handle rent collection, repairs, maintenance, tenant relations, safety checks, periodic inspections, and emergencies. And that's in a nutshell. We do a lot more than that, but that's a little summary of it for you. So your managing agent fees are also tax deductible. So if you're paying a management commission each month, you're able to put a tax deduction on that. Letting agents find the right tenants for your property. We look after the advertising, photos, viewings, referencing, credit checks, and obviously arranging your move-in paperwork, such as tenancy agreements, and obviously as ourselves do a little move-in pack for tenants as well. So another thing, not only is your management commission deductible, but obviously your initial setup fees also.
Yeah.
So credit check agencies investigate the tenant's credit history and assess their financial situation and ability to pay the rent. So as I say, any landlord that I'm discussing credit checks with, obviously before these are such an important thing to have your tenant credit check before they move in, not only for obviously just checking their suitability for the property, but if it comes around to the point where there is maybe you're needing to put through a claim for through your landlord's insurance for rent arrears for it, you will probably need proof that they weren't in adverse credit at the start of the tenancy, because without that your claim might not be successful. So having this done is obviously one of the key things for the start of a tenancy and tax deductible. So
It's just as you were saying there, sorry, just again, we use an independent company who does the referencing and things for us. Although there's such a lot involved in the referencing process in terms of pre-qualifying somebody and finding the right people on paper and in person, but we also run through a credit check individually with a third party, which again is so important to do that.
It is, yeah. So I've had somebody before, this is one of the examples I use as to why it's so important to do this, because I had somebody that, no, my credit check is fine, bank statements were all right, but when it came round to running this credit report, there was £20,000 worth of CCJs on their credit history. And obviously without that report, you wouldn't have known that. So it is such an important thing to do. And like you say, we have a third party that carries that out, so we know it's a comprehensive report and it's doing the checks that you can't see on that initial referencing process.
Yeah, and landlords who are doing things on their own and things, and even agents, it's so easy to maybe be fooled and take people on merit when they come across very genuine. But until you do an actual proper credit check, you're not going to know whether what they're actually telling you is the truth. Do you know what I mean? Even down to possibly their earnings, what they actually earn and who they're employed by and what their financial history is like. To take all that just from someone's work is quite a risk.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot that goes into reference and to make sure that somebody is going to be suitable for the property, especially just now. Obviously, there's the moratorium on evictions. So doing those as many checks as you can in that first place to obviously you're always going to run that risk, but taking as many steps as you can to try and minimize that risk at the start of the tenancy.
Yeah, definitely.
And one of the final things under this category is solicitors. So they can help you gain possession of your property in worst case scenario, you do need to evict your tenants.
Yeah, I think worst case scenario, if you are in that position where you're using a solicitor or, do you know what I mean, to obviously and have legal costs and things, that is, of course, tax deductible. And like I've mentioned about the insurance, your landlord's insurance and things will also maybe include legal costs, and then likewise they are tax deductible, your insurance costs and things. So good.
So while every landlord should maximise their tax efficiently and their profits, remember that truly passive income comes from valuing your time as much as the rent that you receive. The more time you have, the more you can live the life you love.
Yeah, I think that time is just Jim and I talk about it a lot, and how important time is and how valuable time is. I think there is a lot of time and effort goes into managing property, especially if there's a lot. You know, if you've got a bigger portfolio, obviously, it can be quite time consuming. There's a lot of knowledge and experience that is required to do it properly, especially with the compliance and legal side of things now. So if you do value your time and don't want to spend all your time doing this, then get somebody to do it for you. We'll just obviously touch, I mean, like you say, Kevin, we're running through these things today, but there's a lot more involved in the day-to-day of letting. And it is, I mean, it does become part of second nature to us because we do it every day. And it's part of our daily process to make sure that we're up to date and making sure that things are like our knowledge is up to date with what the actual current guidelines and legislation is. We know the right places to look and find that and update what we know. It's not always easy for landlords to know where to look or to how to find out that information. But there are places like the Scottish Association of Landlords. If you are self-managing and you're on your own, please join them and be a member. They regular updates, newsletters to keep everybody up to date with what they should be doing and when they should be doing it. If there's deadlines for certain certificates, like we've got the impending EPC banding. Obviously, we've got minimal EPC banding and things, and there's a lot surrounding that. And just obviously the updates on the current moratorium and rent freezes. Obviously, we are now allowed to do the rent increases as of the 1st of April. So you could do a 3% increase. And then also, if you can prove that your costs have really escalated in terms of mortgage or insurance or possibly the factor fees in a building, you could do a 6%, but you do need to put an application through and explain where these expenses have risen, and that obviously justifies a 6% rise. But a place like the Scottish Association of Landlords is good, and also a governing body like the Scottish Association of Landlords is quite good for voicing the opinions to the Scottish Government on behalf of landlords. Sometimes a lot of individual landlords trying to put their obviously their concerns and things across just get overlooked. But if you're part of if we're all part of one governing body for the sector, and they could speak on our behalf, and if you're a member of that, then you have an input in that, and it's very important. Jim and I spoke on a previous show about how the Scottish Association of Landlords pushed forward with regards to the current change and getting to do rent increases as of April, because obviously the situation that people are finding themselves in with the rent freeze and the moratorium and the impact that had on everyone. So that's very important, I think, just to bear in mind. And on that note, we speak about mortgages and increasing mortgage rates and things, but another thing is mortgage relief, and the way a landlord can deduct their mortgage from their taxable income has changed relatively recently. So I'll outline what you can claim, and some obviously helpful. There's loopholes and things as well. So from April 2020, the amount you can deduct from your taxable income was fixed at 20% of the mortgage interest. So the remainder of the interest and capital repayments are no longer allowable expenses. Lower rate taxpayers were unaffected by this change, but you'll now pay more if you are in a higher tax band. So either through existing earnings or by the new allowances increasing your taxable income. So have to bear that in mind. The change only affects individual landlords and doesn't apply to limited companies. So if you've got a limited company and you're running that, then be aware that that doesn't apply. It's only for individuals. Limited companies can still deduct their entire mortgage interest. Useful if you're looking to expand your portfolio. I think the best way forward, I mean, it is all on an individual basis, but more than likely the best way forward, if you're going to build a portfolio of a certain size, is to have it in a limited company for tax purposes and things. It does really have its benefit. I mean, these changes make it all the more important to stay on top of the available mortgage deals in case you maybe have a fixed rate coming to an end or whatever, especially with mortgage rates rising at the moment. And staying one step ahead, you can seamlessly switch to a new deal without moving to a more expensive variable rate and things. So again, that would be something that you would need to speak to a mortgage advisor who knows the market and has access to products and things that you won't maybe get through high street banks or your general mortgage providers. It is really important. We have some good mortgage advisors that we could do referrals through to as well, and that would be something I'd happily do. Again, you could message me on the email, or even just come on the post itself, and I would come back to you. But mortgages obviously is a hot topic at the moment. Everybody's really I've had a lot of conversations even just in the past week about people's mortgages and changing. Karen, I think you're in a position with your own mortgage at the moment, so
yes, I'm not looking forward to that. So I think everyone's a bit kind of uncertain just now. It can be a little bit worrying to not know what kind of percentage you're going to be increased to, what your payments are going to be increased to. So yeah, speaking to the right mortgage advisors in this situation, just so you know. I've had a friend that tried to do it herself. I don't know why, considering she has myself and another friend that both work in property, and she's just had an absolute headache over it. And I was like, please just speak to us and we'll help you sort it out, or put you in contact with the right people for it, because it is quite stressful for people just now. So speaking to the right advisor can help you obviously secure yourself a better deal going forward.
Yeah, I think that it is a really confusing time, and it is quite difficult for people to navigate through the changes in legislation, the extra costs involved, and it's put a lot of people off. Landlords and things that maybe just have one or two properties and they're thinking like it's not worth it anymore. And my advice would be, it is just make sure that you're doing things properly and know what you're entitled to in terms of obviously everything that we've covered in terms of expenses today, and also that you have things being done correctly in terms of the property being compliant and things as well. It is really important, and we try and be as helpful to everyone as we can. I mean, even people that are not landlords that approach us and just look for advice, then we are happy to do that. It's quite difficult for people, and we appreciate the fact that some people don't know where to turn to get the right advice. As I say, I've already said the Scottish Association of Landlords. Please feel free to message me myself direct. And Karen, yourself as well. I mean, as a letting agent, in terms of when it comes to the whole letting process and what's involved in that, and the best way to start that whole process and do it seamlessly as you can. You can speak to Karen.
We wrote it down one day, and it was the kind of the lettings process and what we did, and there was like over 100 points of like each steps that we did. So there's a lot involved in it that you can kind of get it in a bit of a nutshell. We can go through it obviously at that kind of initial stage with the landlord, but there's so many extra little things that we do just to get a tenant moved in the first place that you maybe don't think about. So it's quite good to speak to an agent about it.
Yeah, I forgot about that actually. We done that in a training course, and it's like right down there. It's like, and we could have kept going. Yeah, to be honest, we could have kept going, but I think we got to about 100 points and thought, right, okay, at least I think that'll do. But there is a lot involved. Okay, the comments for today. We've got Perry joining us morning, Perry. Heather saying very helpful. Thanks for joining, Heather. Always a pleasure to provide information. I don't have TikTok and Instagram because Jim's not here. Now we usually run TikTok and Instagram live on Jim's mobile devices. If you do want to watch on TikTok and things, when obviously it's just myself, I do have a TikTok. If you want to go on and join it, you need to have 1,000 followers to do live, and I think I'm at 756 or I'm close to that anyway. So as soon as I hit 1,000, I will be able to go live on TikTok. We get a lot of feedback for TikTok and questions and things, and it's good to go through them at the end and share. But obviously this live show runs on all the social media platforms like Facebook and whatever. So, but it's good to go live on the TikTok and Instagram as well. So yeah, Instagram. My Instagram is actually Fife Properties Lettings. So if you could join that, follow me, get me to 1,000, we would be live on TikTok this morning. So that would be quite good. But yeah, that was good this morning, Karen. Anything else you want to add? What's your final thoughts?
No, I think obviously there's a lot of points that are tax deductible, so it's been really insightful to go through them all and see obviously what you can deduct and to make your money work for you as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it is important. I mean, especially in this time, this day and age, everyone has got a lot of expenses, and costs are a big concern for people. But there is ways and means of minimising that as much as you can, and being aware of what you're actually entitled to. So that's good. And also, if anybody wants any information or pointed in the direction of how to get the right information, whether it's from a financial aspect, from financial or mortgage advisor, if it's even where to get obviously good advice on possibly inventories, like we covered today. Inventories is such a big part of the initial process, and obviously referencing and things as well. Then my email's in the blog attached to this post, and you can always get us on social media, or obviously speak to us direct. My number's also in this post as well. So that's us for this morning. Thanks very much for joining me, Karen, and obviously sharing your part of obviously the lettings process and things that are tax deductible. And I think there's a lot of people that aren't aware of that. And also from the mortgage and insurance point of view, it is really important to keep that in mind. So yeah, and thanks everybody for joining and commenting. Unfortunately, I couldn't be live on TikTok, but as I say, follow me and we could get there to 1,000 followers. Right, okay, guys, enjoy your Saturday. Thanks for joining me, Karen. I'll see you all next time. Thank you.
Bye.